And we are back.
It's us again.
139 of the Horror Guys.
Hot diggity. I'm Kevin.
I'm Brian.
And we saw some horror movies this week, didn't we?
We did. We're not even going to joke about musical theater this week.
Science fiction-y kind of old style, some old school stuff this week.
These are some that straddle the line of sci-fi or horror.
And a funky one from the 70s.
Funky.
Yeah, there you go. It was a funky movie.
All right, we're going to start out in 1955 with The Day the World Ended. And also, The Beast with a Million Eyes.
That's a lot of eyes.
That's a lot, yeah.
Yeah, and The Brain Eaters from 1958.
Nom, nom, nom,
and then we got Blacula from 1972.
Who?
Blacula.
Not Dracula.
Blacula. Yeah.
That just sounds very politically incorrect.
Oh, this movie is so politically incorrect. But yes, so good. And so entertaining.
It is. It's actually really good. All right. Well, as usual, the show is brought to you by the Horror Guys Guides. There's a link in the show notes to take you to any of the books. And got an announcement this week. We got something new.
Yeah, we do.
The Horror Bulletin monthly bulletin, yeah. It's got the entire month's worth of typed reviews. Basically everything you see on the website is in there. We'll have a link in the show notes to pick that up. It's available for your Kindle, Nook, Kobo reader, any of the usual ebook readers, or you can get it in print. And it's got whole bunch of good stuff in it.
And we're going to start throwing in bonus material and all kinds of good
stuff
too.
This first issue is just the reviews that we've done this past month. Next month and the months after that, we'll have additional bonus movies that you won't find on the site or the podcast. So, if you'd like to read the site, if you'd like to listen to the show, pick one up, link in the show note, and we'll be doing this every month.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah. All right, so how about that? I guess we're not going to have any issues next month because this is the day
the world ended.
Yes. Yep. Directed by Roger Corman, written by Lou Russoff, stars Richard Denning, Laurie Nelson, and Adele Jurgens. Hour and 19 minutes.
And this was one of those films that was cashing in on the new radioactive technologies that were coming out, and the fear of atomic radiation and mutation and monsters and all that sort of stuff.
Yes, the A-bomb and the H-bomb and fallout and nuclear mutations.
And boy, the science is bad in this.
Oh, yeah. All right, well, our spoiler-free review is that we both thought this post-atomic survival drama was just okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty dated and the science is all wrong. The acting is fine, but the story and character interactions are really cliche and predictable. Still, if you really want to know what scared people during the Cold War, this is worth a peek.
Yep. Shot in only 9 days, they say.
Most of these films were back then.
Quick, yeah. Pump them up.
Which, considering how long it takes to make a feature film nowadays, that's pretty good, because they were entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't great, most of them, but they were decent for 9 days and $300 or whatever. Well, we start out with an atomic explosion. Eerie synth music plays as credits roll. The narrator explains that the ozone has burned off and the world no longer exists as we know it. We are told that the atomic haze of death hangs over the entirety of the Earth. A few humans have been spared, but only a few.
There's this lucky valley where the movie takes place.
The Lucky Valley. I don't know how lucky some of these people are.
Well,
an overdressed couple, Tony and Ruby, drive up in a convertible through the atomic haze. And they're wearing their tux and wedding dress. They're
in a convertible.
In a convertible, yes.
Atomic haze in a convertible.
They make their way to a building. Another man, Rick, carries a contaminated man with radiation wounds toward the same building. Jim and Louise Madison live in that house, and they have a radio and Geiger counter.
And he's been a bit of a prepper. He
saw
this coming,
prepper,
and they're well stocked, but just for the two of them, and all these guests are showing up.
Yeah,
and
they packed for him and his daughter and her fiancé,
who is not there.
Yeah,
but there's suddenly more than 3 people, and this is a problem.
Rick arrives, but he is not the expected third member of the household. But he is a geologist, however.
Could be useful.
An old cowboy arrives with his donkey. Now there are 7, and a donkey. Jim and Louise explain the situation. There's no radio signals from anywhere in the world. 7 of us in this room may be the beginning of a new era in civilization. Well, since there are only 2 women, good luck with that.
Well, a
couple of them are going to be very busy.
Small breeding pool.
And, of course, the old man's too old to do anything, and one of them's the father, so this gene pool's getting smaller the harder you think about it.
Uh-huh.
Jim talks to Rick about mutant animals in the area. 3 weeks later, Radek, the sick man, is still alive, but he hasn't eaten in 3 weeks. He goes out every night and does something mysterious in the countryside. Jim thinks he's dangerous and should be destroyed. Radek is sneaking out at night and eating contaminated animal meat.
So he is eating.
But this time, he sees that there's something bigger than he is out there. Tony has eyes for Louise, which makes Ruby jealous. It's been several weeks, and it's finally going to rain, which is going to be bad.
Yeah, because it's not nice, clean water.
Yeah. Ruby and Louise go swimming in the river, which for some reason they decide is a safe thing to do.
Yeah, and they never mention radiation there.
Where's that water from the river coming from?
Yeah, good question.
But something is in the bushes watching them. They see huge clawed footprints in the mud. Old cowboy Paul brought his donkey, which stays outside all night. He's an old prospector, and he says he finally found gold, but now it's not good for anything.
Not much.
Tony grabs Louise and the smooches start, but not willingly on her part. Ruby tries to change his mind, but he's preoccupied with their situation anyway. He figures if they kill the other 4 people, they can live for 3 months on the supplies, and by then, all this will be over.
And where does he think they're going to go after that?
It'll all be better.
Okay.
Back to town.
Okay, back to normal.
Rick follows Radek and watches him walk right through toxic fog. Jim explains about the nuclear tests that he used to be involved with. 3 test animals survived the experiments, and he has pictures that he drew, and it looks like a 3-year-old did it.
Yeah, but they mutated animals.
1 monkey grew armor plating and extra arms. They find another contaminated man in the woods who dies quickly, but says there are stronger people where he came from. Radek can go up there, and he says wonderful things are happening up there. Tony tries to steal Jim's gun, but Rick intervenes, and there's a fight. Tony then smacks Ruby and tells her to get lost. Louise thinks something outside is trying to talk to her. The mutants are coming closer to the house each night. Sounds very suspenseful, doesn't it?
It does, but it's not really.
It's all pretty tame.
It's really tame, yeah.
Radek steals the donkey and heads up the hill to the toxic zone. Rick and Jim follow him and find a human skeleton. Maybe Radek ate him.
Maybe.
Radek still got the donkey, but something big kills him from behind and takes the donkey too. Rick finds Radek's body. The next day, Paul goes up the mountain to his own certain death. Ruby's skin is starting to get rough, just like Radek's was. Tony grabs a knife and forces Louise to go into the woods with him. Ruby follows and fights with Tony until he stabs her to death and throws her off a cliff. Oops.
Oops.
And there's this long shot of the rubber dummy falling off the cliff. Jim's been sick, so he stays behind with Tony. Tony gets Jim's gun, but the monster has 3 eyes and little arms growing out of its shoulders. It's armor-plated, of course, but Rick shoots it repeatedly. It is, on the other hand, afraid of water. As Louise and Rick stand in the pond, it begins to rain, which drives the monster off. Jim tests the rainwater, and it's all clear now, pure water. The mutant staggers through the woods, collapses and dies from the rain. It can't handle uncontaminated rainwater.
Oh, okay.
As Rick approaches the house, Tony plans to shoot him. Jim shoots Tony in the back, finally.
About time.
Yeah,
that was long overdue.
Yeah. Jim dies after telling them he heard a radio signal from other survivors. They aren't alone. Louise doesn't quite figure out, but we do, that the mutant was her fiancé all along. He finally did make it to the house after the attack, but he wasn't quite the same. All right, well, it's creative, but it's clear they didn't really understand the severity of a nuclear blast or how radiation poisoning works. They really thought 7 people would rebuild the human race and the air would clear up in a matter of weeks. And where did this house get the electricity? After they
He
killed,
never explains that, does he?
After they killed one mutant.
Maybe, he had his own, system, something, but
Maybe.
it's never mentioned. No.
Yeah. And after they killed the mutant, is that all? Was he the only one?
I doubt it.
Seems unlikely.
Yeah.
It's tense, it's suspenseful, but it's very predictable. You know something's out there, but we don't see it till the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was okay. Yeah. Now, something interesting, a little crossover. Paul Blaisdell, who played the mutant, he also played, we just saw It Conquered the World, which we'll be talking about in a future episode.
Yeah.
And he is uncredited as the monster there. And we're going to be talking about The Beast with a Million Eyes.
Yeah.
And he was the monster creator, the special effects creator
Okay.
in that one. So he was in the business.
Got regular work.
He was in the monster business around that time. Yeah.
Not familiar with that name. Okay. What do we got next?
We got The Beast with a Million Eyes.
A Million Eyes. That's a lot of surface area.
This was directed by David Kramarski, Roger Corman, Lou Place. I guess they all three.
3 directors?
I guess they all 3 worked
Okay.
on it. Yeah. Written by Tom Filer. Stars Paul Birch again.
Same guy.
Lorna Thayer. Donna Cole, Dick Sargent. I Dream of Jeannie.
Oh, and that other one, the previous movie, Tony.
Yeah.
He was listed as Touch Connors is his name in that one.
Okay.
Later on, he changed his name to Mike Connors,
Oh.
and became Mannix on the detective show.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I wonder whose idea it was to call him Touch.
I don't know. That's really a unique name, though.
Kind of a Me Too name nowadays. Don't touch.
Don't touch. Yeah.
Yeah, from Touch Football?
I don't know.
Someone you want to touch?
Maybe it was a nickname. Yeah.
Yeah.
A college nickname or
A little
something.
touched in the head?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. So, yeah, there's lots of people in these movies that eventually went on to other things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Runtime was an hour and 15 minutes on this one.
I like the
And
short ones.
there's a link to the trailer in the show notes.
Oh, yeah. All these movies now have trailers in the show notes.
Yeah.
So,
So
yeah,
you
if
can
you
check
want
them
to
out
get a little
and-
hint of what these are about, watch the trailers. They're
Yeah.
fun. Some of them are really bad, but they're a minute or two, so they're kind of fun.
Yes, especially these old ones. Yeah. The spoiler-free judgment yeah. Easy for me to say.
Spoiler-free Judgment Zone.
It was pretty influential, but it's not very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The alien spaceship is just a fancy teapot. It literally, as you can see, it's got a little spinny thing on top. And once you know that...
Like a percolator almost.
Yes, a chrome percolator. And the monster revealed at the end is a double exposed puppet. It's not worth your time unless you're a completist like we are. So,
yeah. I don't regret watching it, but I don't intend to watch it again.
yeah, and the concept was interesting. Yeah. Well, it opens with the voice of the Beast, who explains that he is approaching our world and soon we will all be under his control.
None of this movie is going to make any sense if you miss that first minute voiceover.
Absolutely.
It
Yeah,
explains
that's
everything.
absolutely vital of what's going over.
Million eyes. It's a teapot.
Yeah. Well, it's the alien itself is, doesn't have much physical form and is able to, yeah. Anyway, he goes on to say he will take over all the birds, the animals, and the simple-minded of the earth, giving him a million eyes here on earth.
I don't suppose you could call people
then credits
simple-minded
roll.
nowadays, could you?
Probably not. But he was. I mean,
Well, the one character is,
yeah,
yes.
the one character was. So, yeah, explaining what is the politically correct term for
Mentally
someone like
challenged.
him. Mentally
Mentally
challenged.
disabled.
Okay. Mentally disabled. Yeah. Okay.
There's other words that I'm not
Differently
even
abled.
going to get into that we
Well,
don't use
yeah.
anymore.
There's worse ones. Yeah. But anyway, yeah. He's a simple fellow.
Okay.
Yeah. Alan Kelly explains how his day ranch is going broke. The loneliness of the job has gotten to him, and he sounds a little crazy. He describes the desert. It's the perfect place to hatch a brood of horror or hate. I mean,
right
he's a deep thinker and kind of dark. Yeah. His wife Carol is jealous of the opportunities her daughter Sandra has that she missed out on. Carol is freaked out by Carl, who is always watching from his window.
And I don't think he's listed as Carl in the credits.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they ever call him Carl. It's always him.
Him, yeah.
Him was there, not he was there.
Him.
They always call him him.
Yeah.
I gave it to him. Him was up there.
It's just it's
just
a
weird.
Strange way to do it. Yeah. Well, when Carl's not staring out the window, he's inside reading girly magazines and clipping out, and he has a wall of a collection. So
Great wall of porn.
Yeah. 1950s porn.
Yeah, well, they're all dressed in the 50s.
As racy as it was back then, yeah. Well, Sandra, the daughter, goes for a swim, and creepy Carl follows to watch. She catches Carl, but he can't speak at all, and he's pretty simple-minded, so she's not too mad. Well, they all hear a high-pitched whine, but it soon goes away. Except the glass coffee pot, all the windows and everything else that's glass or breakable in the house shatters at the sound. And a bunch of birds dive bomb Alan's car, and Sandra's dog, Duke, runs off. So something has come. Carol throws a tantrum and won't let Carl inside the house anymore, and she refuses to feed him, too. Duke, the dog, finds a machine that makes a high-pitched noise.
Now,
this is the first time we see the teapot, isn't it?
Yeah, Carl lives in a shed.
Spaceship.
Carl lives in a shed. It has no bathroom. It has no kitchen. Mm-hmm. And she refuses to feed him. What's he going to do? Eat the dog?
Yeah, how's that going to work? Yeah. Yeah.
So, the dog goes out and finds the space teapot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, seems to be drawn there and mesmerized by it. Well, the deputy comes by to check on the damage, but he's more interested in checking out Sandy. It's clear they got a thing going. Alan and Sandy go to town with the deputy, and Duke the dog attacks Carol, and she has to run to Carl for help. Oh, sure, now she likes Carl. Yeah. He won't let her in, and Duke chases her. Carl then kind of just wanders off into the desert, and he's drawn by the sound of the thing, too.
The small animals and the simple-minded.
Yes, yeah. When Alan and Sandra return home, they wonder why the lights aren't on. Carol is inside, but she's not dead, but she locked Duke in the woodshed and killed him with an axe. Sandy doesn't believe Carol's story, since Carol always hated the dog. Well, Sandy runs out. She hears the noise coming from the desert, and she also wanders off after the sound. She catches up with Carl and leads him back home. And Carl kind of snaps out of it when she teams up with him.
When two people touch each other, it breaks the spell.
There's a thing there, yeah. Two people together are stronger than one, kind of a theme that goes throughout it. Well, Sandy tells Alan about hearing the noise. He thinks that being together made them both stronger. So he's onto it, too. Yeah. An older neighbor, Ben, goes out to milk his cows, but his cow tramples him to death. Because,
the cow got
influence.
It, too.
Yep. And the chickens attack Carol the next morning.
Evil chickens.
Alan writes to the VA Psychiatric Division. Does he think Carol is insane? Or does it have something to do with Carl? Alan never talks about the war. Well, Carl wanders back into the desert again when he hears the sound. Meanwhile, Alan finds Ben's body in his yard. Carl eventually finds the little glowing teapot from space that's been emitting the sound. Carol finally makes biscuits successfully after uncounted failures. Yes. So she finally smiles. She's happy. She's made biscuits.
She's made 4 batches of biscuits, and every time she burns them or they fall, collapse or whatever. Yeah.
Ben's cow chases Sandy and Carol, but Alan arrives in time to shoot it. The family gets in the car. Alan says that something is closing in on them, so it's time to get out of there. They don't get far before birds start suicide bombing the car, and they all end up having to go back to the house. It's almost as if they were organized. Something is driving them, controlling them. Alan wonders if maybe it's that plane they heard yesterday that might have been from another world. They all get trapped inside the house like a scene out of The Birds. Carl comes back to the house, and he lets all the air out of their tires, because he's under the influence now. He also knocks out the deputy, who was on his way to the rescue. Sandy is distraught over Deputy Larry, who should have been there by now. Larry tracks Carl to the whining teapot, and the two men fight.
Now, Carl lets the air out of the tires.
Yeah.
And the car that is parked right outside the house.
Yeah.
The deputy is like 2 miles away, heading towards him.
Yeah.
And Carl stops him and attacks him, too.
Yeah.
Seconds apart.
Yeah, I noticed that.
How did he get there?
That was some bad editing,
Yeah.
bad writing. Yeah. Sandy gets involved, gets carried off by Carl. Oh, involved in the fight. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, Alan and Larry follow Carl's footprints toward the alien device. He talks Carl into bringing Sandy back to him. Then Carl falls down dead.
Because reasons.
Because, why? Yeah, because reasons. They carry Sandy to safety, and Larry goes back to kill the evil, mind-controlling teapot. They hear the beast, telepathically. I have some secrets, too, he says. It seems we must part. I offer you life, yours and the woman's for the girl. We have no material form of our own. We live on brains. Hate and madness are the keys to power in my world. He wants to take Sandy home to his world to experiment and find out why humans seem to be able to resist him. Alan doesn't go for that. Well, they explain to the beast that the secret to beating him is love.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And his spaceship is programmed to leave at first light, and dawn is approaching. The family goes to the pit where the spaceship is still radiating control waves, but it doesn't affect them anymore. An eye comes out of the ship, and it has a little puppet-like monster inside it. And it dies, for no particular reason, and then the ship launches back into space. Deputy Larry reappears from somewhere, and everyone is going to be happy. The end.
Yeah, it was something.
Yeah, and that vicious dog, Duke. Oh, ferocious dog.
He's a smiling, happy dog that wags his tail and wants to lick people, and they're like, "Get away, you monster!"
And they dubbed over growling, growling, barking, ferocious noises.
Kevin noticed some similarities with The Color Out of Space. Yes, the movie just came out, but the book was written in 1927, so they had every opportunity to be aware of the story. Although it's not quite that cosmic, it's still a strange thing from space that lures people into its mind-controlling field. All right. Well, there are a zillion films of a family or group trapped in a house where the forces of nature surround them and pick them off one by one. Whether it's birds, tarantulas, ants, zombies, or evil clowns, this film inspired a lot of those kinds of films.
So, if you're a completionist, yeah, like we said.
It wasn't terrible.
No.
Better than the other one.
Yeah, I don't know. Kind of a toss-up.
Carl dies because it's time.
Yeah.
The spaceship blows up
reasons.
because it's time.
Because reasons, yeah.
We defeat the monster with love. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Love is a universal weapon.
Well, it is when you're back. Can't write a story. Speaking of stories.
And then there's the Brain Eaters.
No, the Rougarou.
Oh, the Rougarou. Okay.
Short film of the week.
Okay, we interject with a good one.
Yeah, they can't all be stinkers this week. Yeah, this is a 2021 short called The Rougarou, directed and written by Lorraine Caffrey, stars Victoria Delamia, Jacob Telano, Johnny McPhail, and Susan McPhail. 12 minutes, 23 seconds. Link in the show notes to go watch this one on YouTube. What'd you think?
I thought it was pretty great.
I liked it.
Yeah, that girl was awesome. Really good acting, good effects. Makes you wonder what's real and what's not. You know, how much of it, how much of the monstrosity is
it left me
just
a
a monstrous
person
or really a monster. No.
Well, a little girl wakes up, takes the machine gun out of the oven, and bakes a cake. What?
Yeah. Dad's coming home from prison. It's time to welcome him home.
She asks him a million questions like, what's your favorite color? What's your least favorite food? How'd you get that scar on your head? To that last one he answers, it was the Rougarou. He shows her the scars that the Rougarou left on his back, and he warns her never to go outside after dark. It's a rough neighborhood, and there's some shooting after the lights go out. The father describes the shooter and says he has red eyes like cigarette butts after dark. The next morning, the little girl goes outside to clean up after the party and finds a gigantic footprint on the ground and a hole in the crawl space under the house.
Mm-hmm.
Could it be down there?
Could it?
Like everything else in her life, she goes about solving the problem. And he says there was a shooting, and the big 7-foot tall guy with the red eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Why would a Ruggiero be shooting?
Was he shot or was he torn up? I'm not sure he was shot.
I thought we heard shooting that night. That's why the girl hid under the bed.
Well, yeah, but
maybe the guy on the street was shooting at the monster.
Was shooting back.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this one is a little depressing, but not because of the monster. People actually live like this. It's well filmed, well paced, well lit, and very realistic.
Mm-hmm.
We both like this one a lot.
Yeah, and decide for yourself: was he or wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. Really worth checking this one out. Yeah.
Are you hungry?
Brains.
It's a zombie movie.
No.
No.
Oh, another one.
The Brain Eaters.
Yeah.
1958.
Yeah. Directed by Bruno Vassota. Written by Gordon Urquhart and Robert A. Heinlein.
Based on a story
yeah.
by a real science fiction author.
Yeah. Stars Ed Nelson, Alan J. Factor, Cornelius Reef, and Leonard Nimoy in a little role.
Funny thing about that Richard Heinlein bit, though.
Yeah?
He didn't get credit for writing this story until many years later.
Oops.
The guys who made this read one of his stories.
Uh-huh.
Copied it,
Uh-huh.
made this movie out of it, and he sued them years later.
Uh-huh.
And eventually
hey,
he ended
story.
up getting writing credit for the story that he had nothing to do with the film.
Just after the fact, yeah.
Leonard Nimoy. If you go on IMDb and look up the movie, the top star in this is Leonard Nimoy.
Oh, yeah. Well, he's the top name.
And he gets like a minute of screen time, and he's in so much makeup you can't recognize him other than his voice.
You recognize his voice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, the runtime was only just over an hour. It's a kind of a short one.
It didn't seem that short.
It seemed kind of long.
It kind of did,
Yeah. Well, the spoiler-free judgment zone, it's heavily dated, but otherwise good. And this is Brian saying that.
You disagree.
It was clearly influenced by Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which came out a few years prior, as well as Invaders from Mars before that. And it's a little more science fiction-y than horror, but it's still pretty good.
Yeah, all three of these are basically monster movies, but they're sci-fi. They're sci-fi monster movies.
Yeah. Well, Riverdale, Illinois.
That's where Archie lives?
This was before Archie and his gang were born. Yeah, they came later.
The other Riverdale.
Mm-hmm. Probably his parents were teenagers at this point.
Oh, yeah, they remember all this.
Yeah, they probably sit around reminiscing about all these events. Yeah. Well, it used to be a quiet town. We see two men fighting. It's not so quiet anymore. Credits roll. Glenn and his fiancée were on the way to town when they hear a big explosion. They find a dead dog. All the animals they find are dead. And then they find what looks like a crashed spaceship. Big coney thing.
Big coney thing with a hole at the top.
Yeah. Washington calls in Senator Powers to run the UFO committee. They've already erected a scaffold around the mysterious cone, and several of the town's leading citizens have mysteriously died or vanished. So, what's going on? Powers arrives, and he's told the mayor is missing. He meets Dr. Kettering and Dr. Weiler, the two scientists who are investigating the spaceship. They can't penetrate the hall at all. So Kettering decides to go inside. There's an opening. It's just...
They spend like days trying to get in through the metal hull of the ship, and there's a hole right up there they could just crawl in.
Well, they try chipping it and testing it and, to find what it's made of. And
it's been through space. It's hard.
Impenetrable. Yeah. Well, he goes inside. The senator thinks this is all some kind of hoax, but the scientists think it's real. After a long time, Kettering comes back out, and it's nothing but one big, long, spiraling tunnel inside. Nothing to it.
It goes, and it goes, and it goes, and it comes right back out again.
Well, they get a phone call. The mayor has come back. He puts a gun to his own head, but fights the urge down before they all come in. And there's something on the back of his neck.
Uh-oh.
Could it be a brain eater? The mayor points the gun at them, but the deputies shoot him to death. Good police work.
I'm suicidal. That's okay. The deputy will get you.
Yeah. Well, the doctors do an autopsy, and the thing on his neck was attached to his nervous system. When the device is removed, the victim would have died in a few hours anyway. So the victim is under their control in the meantime, whoever they are. A pair of young men attack the sheriff on the road, overpower him, and attach one of the things to his neck. The sheriff gets up and joins them. The thing
spreading.
Is recruiting more people.
It is.
Kettering cuts up a piece of the mayor's brain, and he is attacked by one of the parasites on his arm. He burns it with fire. Dr. Weiler calls. He's found something on the ship. He thinks this cone is just a fuel segment of the ship. The control piece is somewhere else. They call the sheriff, who's under control, and they don't know that, to organize a better search, but the sheriff, yeah. Everyone splits up to search the town, and they all have many misadventures. Senator Powers calls Washington for reinforcements, but the phone operator has already been controlled. This was the days when you'd call, and it would have to go through a switchboard.
Get me an outside line.
Yes, get me Washington, and the operator says, "Oh, I'm sorry, all the circuits are busy." Click, You couldn't just dial yourself like that. Yeah. So the young people are dropping parasites into people's bedrooms as they sleep. They get Alice, Kettering's assistant. They find the body of Dr. Kelsington inside the ship. They go inside the ship.
Yeah, they go inside.
Yeah. He disappeared.
Finally, they go inside.
Yeah, they're able to. Finally, he disappeared 5 years ago. And he's not dead, but the parasite gave his body up after using it up, and he has a bad heart, and the thing abandoned him. So Kensington's wakes up and says they came from the Carboniferous Age. They have survived all this time. It's not a spaceship, it's a tunneling machine. They came from below. So the police guards at the ship start shooting at the scientists, but the scientists shoot back. Suddenly they know how to use guns. Yeah. Kettering and Glenn go inside the ship, and they find Dr. Cole, who has also been missing for 5 years. Now he is part of the parasitic intelligence. He explains that they bring utopia and a perfect, peaceful world. This is Leonard Nimoy. You can recognize his voice. They have a shootout with the sheriff. Cole disappears in the smoke. They leave the ship, but there's plenty of activity inside. Kettering thinks up a plan to electrify the ship with high power lines, and he's just about to zap them. Alice tries coming out of the ship and tries to convince Kettering that he's wrong. She's been taken over by one of the parasites. She shoots him, and Glenn fires the gun, electrifying everything. Everything in the ship is killed, but they still have to round up the controlled people in town. No problem, says Powers. And that's
the end of it.
And that's kind of where it ends, yeah.
Yeah, I guess we'll round those people
they
right
knocked
up.
out the main thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right, well, it was pretty good, I guess.
Yeah.
I was expecting something from space that literally ate brains, but that's not what it's about.
That's not what it was about.
There's nothing in this movie about eating brains. The world didn't end in the day the world ended, and the beast with a million eyes was a teapot with one eye.
I found all three of these movies disappointing.
Yeah. They were probably really exciting and fun, 70 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
They're pretty tame and, okay, they're boring.
Can't really recommend any of them, I'm afraid.
In this one here, the mind control body snatchers had been done before. Little parasites from outer space this time, but it's the same thing. It's body snatchers. It seems clearly influenced by that, which came out 2 years earlier. And, yeah, that was Leonard Nimoy under that beard as Dr. Cole in the spaceship, shrouded in smoke, covered by a beard, and blurry, but the voice was unmistakable. This was not his first credit, though. He'd been in like a dozen things before this. Of the three sci-fi type stories, I'd say this was probably the best of the three. They're all pretty lame.
Yeah, I would have to agree. Yeah.
Now, just so we don't destroy the entire week with a bunch of losers, we both liked the next film.
Oh, yeah.
Blacula from 1972. Directed by William Crane, written by Joan Torres and Raymond Koenig, Stars William Marshall, Vanetta McGee, and Denise Nicholas. Hour and 33 minutes. And yes, there is a trailer. The spoiler-free. The tagline is, The Black Avenger, Dracula's soul brother. Would you expect anything other than hokey blaxploitation? Actually, it was a lot better than we expected. It's a good vampire tale with an extra level of campy, dated goofiness on top. And what a snapshot of 70s language and styles. We liked it.
Yes, excellent.
Yeah, I mean, you are going to cringe quite a bit with this one.
But
it's a good cringe.
Yeah. Looking at one of the posters, bloodsucker, deadlier than Dracula. Warm young bodies will feed his hunger, and hot, fresh blood his awful thirst.
I think he'd have been a lot better if they'd have left those stupid sideburn things off.
Yeah, that was kind of weird.
Vampires don't have hairy faces, and neither did he most of the time.
I think that was supposed to be distinguishing, when he was monstering out versus when he was
He's all
calm and trying to blend in. Yeah.
Yeah.
They had to do something, and they did.
In Transylvania, 1780, at Dracula's castle, Dracula is entertaining Prince Mamuwalde from the Dark Continent. The prince wants to bring his culture into the modern world. He also wants to end the slave trade, which Dracula finds convenient and useful sometimes. It's like Meals on Wheels.
Mm-hmm.
The prince insults Dracula and says they're leaving, but Dracula has other plans. Drac's minions overpower the prince and his wife, biting him in the process. "You shall pay, Black Prince. I shall place a curse of suffering on you," says Dracula. "I curse you with my name. You shall be Blacula." And then they lock Blacula into a coffin and Princess Luva into the tomb. Credits roll.
And time passes.
Lots of time passes. We move to the present day, or 72 as the case may be.
Right.
Still in Transylvania. A couple of gay interior decorators buys all the furnishings from Count Dracula's castle, and the real estate guy explains that Dracula has been dead for 150 years. Naturally, they take the coffin in the basement as well, which they ship to a warehouse in Los Angeles with their haul. Did you have any guesses as to these guys being gay?
Oh, it was so subtle I couldn't tell.
Yeah. Well, they open the coffin and one guy cuts himself. The smell of blood wakes up what's inside the coffin.
It's Blacula, still alive after all these years, and boy, is he hungry and cranky.
He drains both Billy and Bobby, puts on his cape, and crawls back in the coffin. Just wanted a little snack.
Time for a nap. Yep. Napsies.
A day or two later, Blacula goes to Bobby's funeral. Some mourners come in. Dr. Gordon plans on finding out what happened to poor Bobby. Gordon looks at the wound on Bobby's neck and notices that the corpse was drained of blood. Tina is one of the mourners, and Blacula recognizes her as Luva, his lost princess. He chases her for blocks through Los Angeles until he gets hit by a taxi. The taxi driver gets out and yells at him for being stupid, and he angrily bites her. He does, however, find Tina's purse and ID inside. Meanwhile, Tina/Luva goes back to her apartment.
And it is the same actress.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Her sister Michelle comes over, and they talk.
McGee.
Gordon goes to the morgue and talks to Sam the coroner. Sam the coroner is that old man who's in all the movies in the 70s.
Oh, yeah, everyone. Yeah.
Gordon is there to look over the body of the taxi driver. Then he goes to see Detective Peters for the records and for Bobby and Billy's case. But the records have gone missing. The whole group then goes to a nightclub where there's an awesome band performing a great musical number. A less monstrous-looking Blacula, now using the name Mamuwalde, tracks down Tina there and says he found her purse. Gordon gets a call from the funeral home. Bobby's body has gone missing.
Uh-oh.
Another friend of the group, Skillet, introduces himself. Tina finds Mamuwalde attractive, and the two set a time to meet tomorrow night. A photographer in the club takes everyone's photo.
And that ends poorly for the photographer.
Yeah, we cut then to Nancy the photographer at home in her darkroom. She's getting ready to develop the photos of the people at the club. Blacula doesn't appear in any of the developed photos, but he does appear outside her door and kills her. She, in turn, then bites a policeman. It's just spreading like a plague.
It's spreading, yeah.
Blacula comes to Tina at her apartment. When he says she's his wife, she doesn't exactly deny it. She ought to be saying, "What? You're crazy," but she doesn't.
No, she seems to maybe really be a reincarnation of her. And kind of knows it on some level.
Yeah, he gives the backstory to their tribe back in Africa, and she asks him to stay with her, which makes him very happy. Meanwhile, Gordon is in the cemetery digging up Billy, the white kid who was bitten along with Bobby. They find Billy in the coffin, but he's very not dead.
Right.
Now, Gordon is completely convinced that vampires exist, something he had been suspecting for a while. He calls Sam back at the morgue and tells him to take the taxi driver out of the freezer and then lock her in the room. Sam opens the freezer, but he forgets to lock the door. Gordon picks up Lieutenant Peters to go to the morgue, but by the time they arrive, the taxi driver has killed Sam.
Whoops.
Blacula goes back home for the day, and Tina says she loves him. The next night, Gordon and Michelle meet Blacula at the club, and they all talk about vampires. Someone mentions that they haven't seen Nancy in a few days, so Gordon goes over to see that there was a struggle in the dark room. He finds the negatives that show Blacula doesn't show on film.
Yeah, Blacula went through the trouble of tracking her down and taking care of her and not destroying the film.
He slept for 200 years. Why would he even know what a camera was?
Well, he did,
much less film and negatives.
He did, and he knew he wouldn't show on the film.
I think he did take the pictures. He didn't take the negatives.
Oh, he didn't think about the negatives. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
He didn't know that much.
Okay.
Okay, so now Gordon knows that Mama Walde is the vampire, and he's with Tina. Gordon comes in, and Blacula runs away. The two cops chase him, and one shoots him repeatedly before being drained dry. They tell Tina the story of what he really is, and she doesn't take it too well. The police and Gordon circle in on the warehouse where this all got started. They run into a bunch of vampires there.
Yeah, that's a pretty well done scene.
Yeah, they burn most of them with a convenient crate of filled glass oil lamps.
Yeah,
and stake the rest.
That was a lucky find right there.
Who ships oil lamps full of oil?
All ready to flame. Yeah.
And of course, these were just lamps of oil. They weren't lit.
Convenient.
And then every time they throw them, they'd burst into flame.
Well,
they're not.
They started.
They weren't lit when they were throwing.
Well, they started one, and then there was fire everywhere, and
You justified that. That's okay.
They did ignite awfully easily. Yeah.
All right, so they burn up most of the vampires, and they run into Blacula outside. He's moved his coffin somewhere else. Rather than kill them, he turns into a bat and flies away. They convince Tina to help them trap Blacula. She leaves the apartment, and Blacula, in bat form, follows. There's a search and a chase in an old chemical factory, and Tina gets shot. He has no choice but to bite her and turn her, something he didn't really want to do. Gordon and his police friend find his coffin, open it, and end up staking Tina by mistake.
Whoops.
Oops. Blacula looks at Tina's corpse and makes a little speech. Then he goes upstairs and walks outside into the sunlight. Without his lost bride, he doesn't want to live.
And that's the end of Blacula. We'll,
never see him again.
Just like Dracula, they never come back from the dead. So
except there is a sequel.
No, they couldn't do that.
Blacula is the first black vampire to appear in film, and this film was created about the middle of the blaxploitation film of the 70s. It's not the first. It's not the last. It's like right in the height.
Yep, right in there.
There's a load of non-politically correct language and stereotyping around race, gender, and sexuality. Blacula looks dated with those silly sideburns, but he's actually one of the more intelligent, competent vampires.
Mm-hmm, certainly is, yeah.
There are several musical numbers in the nightclub performed by the Hughes Corporation.
Yeah, that was awesome.
And that really fitted the movie really well.
Yeah, they were doing
usually when they stop a movie for the musical number, it's kind of a filler.
No, it fit right
pretty
in.
Good here.
Yeah, and they were even doing other songs in the background while the action was going on. Yeah.
It was actually far better than I expected from its reputation, and I definitely do recommend it.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds stupid, and it kind of is in a way, but it's
in a
really
good way.
Good, too.
Yes, yeah, I really enjoyed it.
And that's our show for this week. Hey, you think we'll have more next week?
I bet we will.
Yeah, I think we're going to watch The Angry Red Planet from 1959.
I bet that's Mars, isn't it?
A very
Spoilers.
unhappy Mars. It's
Yeah.
angry.
Yeah.
The Cult of Chucky
All
from
right.
2017. Now, I'm pretty sure that this is the newest of the Chucky films. I know that there's a series which we have not seen yet.
And it's the classic Chucky.
Oh,
It's
classic
not the
Chucky, yes.
digital Chucky. Not the robot Chucky.
Practical effects, not the CGI.
Well,
Chucky.
the robot. There was the robot
Yeah.
spin-off, you know.
Okay,
With the where he
That
was
was more of a
where he was an
reboot.
AI kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the Brad Dourif original
continuation
classic
of that.
Chucky.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's even got the kid grown up.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nosferatu in Venice from 1988.
Interesting.
A week or two ago, we did the Nosferatu movie from 1987 with Klaus Kinski. And they said, hey, that's so good, let's do another one.
And despite Nosferatu dying at the end,
He's back.
here he's back. They do that a lot in these.
Oh, yeah. And VHS 94, an anthology from 2021.
All right.
And I tell you, this week we had 3 out of 4 losers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Next week, I think we kind of liked all of them in their own way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm Brian.
I'm Kevin.
We'll see you next week.
See ya.